Bramble Hollow was the kind of place people passed through without slowing down, a blur of dark trees, a broken church steeple, and a gas station that looked permanently closed even when its lights were on. But if you stopped, if you rolled down the window, you noticed the silence. No insects, no wind, no distant traffic, just the smell of wet earth and iron. Evan Carter arrived 2 weeks before the first snow. He had never met his grandmother in person. His mother refused to talk about her, and when the letter came, property transferred to sole living relative, it felt less like a gift and more like an obligation. The house stood at the far edge of Bramble Hollow, half sunken into the ground as though it had been slowly trying to bury itself. Inside, everything was covered in sheets, except the mirrors. Those were spotless, and every single one faced a door. The first night, he slept on the couch. At exactly 2:13 a.m., he woke to a sound beneath him. Not outside, not in the walls, below the floor. A long, slow drag, like something heavy pulling itself forward through dirt. He told himself it was pipes. Old houses had noises. Old places settled. Old places breathed. But the smell came with it, damp soil and rusted metal, and it stayed in his throat until morning. In daylight, Bramble Hollow seemed normal in the way abandoned things seem normal. There was a diner where the same 3 men sat all day drinking coffee. A school with no children in the yard. A playground with swings that moved even when the air was still. The villagers watched Evan the way people watch a stranger at a funeral, not with curiosity, but with recognition, like they had been expecting him. Mrs. Delaney invited him in on the 3rd day. Her house was filled with clocks. None of them showed the same time. "All of them stop at once," she said when she caught him staring, "when the ground opens." "The ground doesn't—" "It does," she said gently, "in winter." She served tea that tasted faintly of salt. "You're in her house, so it will come to you first." The attic took him 2 days to clear. On the 3rd, he found the trunk. Inside were dozens of journals, each marked with a year. The earliest dated back to 1952. That was the year the mine collapsed. The entries began normally: weather notes, shopping lists, names of people in town. Then they changed. January 14, the bellboy went missing. They say he ran away. Dogs tracked him to the mine road and stopped. February 2, the snow sinks in places where no one walks. February 19, 2:13 a.m. I hear it beneath the house, not digging, learning. The word learning appeared again and again. It learns the weight of us. It learns the sounds we make when we call for help. It learns how to knock. The power went out during a storm. Wind clawed at the trees, bending them toward the house like listening figures. At 2:13 a.m., the dragging sound came again, this time from the crawlspace door in the kitchen. Evan stood there for a long time, flashlight in hand. The smell leaked through the cracks, wet earth, rot, and something sweet underneath, like decaying flowers. He opened the door. The beam of light revealed packed soil, pipes, stone, and a face, half buried in the dirt, pressed upward from below, eyes closed, mouth twitching. He dropped the flashlight and slammed the door. In the morning, There was nothing there, only the imprint of fingers in the soil, as if something had been trying to pull itself upward. The church records told the truth the villagers wouldn't. 32 miners were buried in the collapse, but the recovery report listed only 12 bodies. The rest were marked as unrecovered, presumed crushed. But there was no record of sealing the lower tunnels, only the main shaft. The deeper passages were left open, left connected to the earth beneath the entire village. The first snow fell in absolute silence. No wind, no sound of flakes, just a white curtain descending over Bramble Hollow. And that night, every clock in the village stopped at 2:13 a.m. Evan watched it happen. The second hand shuddered, ticked once more, and froze. Then came the knocking, not at the door, from the floor. Slow, patient, polite. The villagers gathered in the street, carrying lanterns. No one spoke. They walked toward the forest in a line, their faces empty. Evan followed at a distance. At the tree line, they stopped and waited. The ground ahead of them began to sink, snow sliding inward, earth folding like wet paper. And from the depression, something rose, not climbing, unfolding. A mass of limbs layered over each other, stretching upward on jointed arms made of too many elbows. Faces surfaced and sank in its body like things drowning. When one pushed forward fully, it spoke. "Help me." A man's voice, the missing bellboy's father. Then another face, then another demonstrates, each voice belonging to someone the village had lost over the years. The villagers stepped forward one by one, not resisting, not crying. When the creature touched them, their bodies softened like wax near flame and folded into its flesh, absorbed without blood, without tearing, becoming part of it, adding new faces, new voices, new memories. Mrs. Delaney stood beside Evan. "This is how we survive," she said. "You feed it? We return what it asks for, one each winter. It sleeps the rest of the year. And if you don't," she looked at him, "it comes for all of us." The last journal ended mid-sentence. "I will not give it another child. I will burn the root where it drinks from the dead, and—" Evan realized then, she had not died of illness. She had gone to the mine to end it, and she had failed because the thing had learned her voice. The mine entrance lay beyond the forest, buried in drifts of snow, but the earth around it pulsed, breathing. The hole in the center was vast, a throat descending into blackness. Inside, the walls moved, not stone, bodies, layered so densely they formed the structure of the tunnels themselves. At the center of the mass was something older, a shape that was not human at all. A long, pale spine descending into darkness, its surface studded with half-formed skulls. The original thing, the thing that had been there before the mine. The miners had broken into its chamber, and it had learned them, consumed them, copied them, built itself from them. Evan climbed down with a can of gasoline and a flare. The air grew warmer the deeper he went, moist, breathing. Faces opened their eyes as he passed. Some whispered, Some screamed. Some begged to be cut free. Among them, his grandmother. Not a face, almost a full body, suspended in the wall, her mouth moving. "Burn it," she mouthed. At the lowest point, the spine widened into a pulsing sac. Inside it were shapes moving, new forms being made, new villagers. Not absorbed, copied, perfect replicas waiting to be sent back to the surface. The thing didn't just eat, it replaced, slowly, patiently, until Bramble Hollow would be nothing but it. Evan poured the gasoline. Hands grabbed at him. Voices screamed in his own tone. "Don't do this! We are you! We remember your mother!" He lit the flare. For a moment, the entire cavern turned red, and he saw how far the body spread. Not just beneath the mine, beneath the forest, beneath the village. Tendrils reaching outward like roots, like veins. He dropped the flare. The fire moved faster than anything alive. The tunnels screamed. The ground above split open. Snow fell into the burning depths. The creature tried to pull itself together, all its bodies merging into one colossal shape, but the ceiling came down in waves of earth and stone. As Evan climbed, the last voice he heard was his grandmother's. Not begging, not afraid, proud. By morning, Bramble Hollow was half gone. Houses tilted into the new crater. The villagers stood in silence. Some of them were wrong, too still, too perfectly shaped. Copies. The thing had already begun replacing them. Mrs. Delaney smiled at him. Her mouth opened too wide. "You shouldn't have burned the root," she said in a chorus of many voices. Behind her, the ground trembled. Because the fire had not reached everything, the tendrils beneath the village still lived, still learned, still grew. Years later, Evan lived in a high-rise apartment far from any forest. He never spoke about Bramble Hollow, never went near mines, never stayed anywhere with a crawl space. Then, one winter night, the radiator began to clang. 2:13 a.m. A smell seeped through the vents. Wet soil, rust, and from deep below the foundation, a slow, dragging sound, followed by a polite knock from inside the wall, and a familiar voice, warm and gentle. "Evan, we found you."